Hello everyone and welcome. We are now live with our third session of the day at DevFest Algiers 2021. We now have a really interesting talk about impactful AI that will be presented by our guest, Mr. Karim Beguir. Mr. Karim is the CEO and co-founder of InstaDeep. InstaDeep is an AI company that was featured amongst the top 100 private AI companies this year and last year also, which is pretty impressive. Mr. Karim, thank you so much for accepting our invitation and welcome.
Hi, Mesa. Thank you for the invitation. It's really a pleasure to be with you at GDG Algiers. Hi everyone. Welcome. It's a pleasure to be here. And today we're gonna be talking about what I think are like the key drivers and why AI is so impactful, but also share a little bit of like my personal journey and also the InstaDeep journey in those very exciting times. So I'll try to share my screen. And you should be able to see my screen now, hopefully. Yeah.
I'll just remind our audience. So you guys, if you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments. And I'm going now, without further ado, leave it to you, Mr. Karim. So
Perfect.
Go ahead.
Okay, so you should be seeing full screen presentation. Can you see it? Yeah.
Not yet.
Okay, let me know. It should be full screen. Yeah. Let me try again. Yeah. Do you see it now?
I think it's not.
Okay. I'll try it again, and we can probably find a way. Okay. Share screen. Yeah, I'll share my entire screen, so it should be easier. You see it now, yeah?
I think it takes a few seconds to load. So
sure. Excellent.
So far, it's not. It's probably loading.
Yeah, we had tried it before, so it should be fine.
I'm actually pretty excited about this topic, impactful AI. We don't have many people that talk about this, and it's a really important thing. It's a really important topic. So, I think it's live now. It's working. We can see the screen.
Excellent.
I'll leave it to you now.
Yeah. Thanks again for inviting me. It's a pleasure for me to be at GDG Algiers and for InstaDeep to be supporting the event. So as you might know, I'm the co-founder and CEO of InstaDeep, and I'm also a Google machine learning developer expert. And so, in summary, today we're going to be discussing like several parts about, impactful AI. But first, I will sort of explain why I believe, really like the future is happening and fast. And second, we'll discuss, like the AI acceleration itself. And as I mentioned before, I wanted to share to the audience some of the lessons learned, developing InstaDeep. Literally from $2,000 and 2 laptops in Tunisia first, and then expanding globally, and give you some sort of like key summary about what is important. But first, talking about why the future is happening. I think I really like this graph which I got from a presentation called Big Ideas 2019. Which is really like showing you like over a large historical perspective what's been happening. So the first industrial revolution, like the steam engine, started in early 19th century. And then interestingly, around, the beginning of the 20th century, here in the middle, you see the combination of multiple technologies, telephone, automobile, electricity. And then, third revolution being like computers and the internet, like in the late 20th century. But what is really exciting about where we are today in this sort of like fourth industrial revolution is the combination of not three technologies like was the case in the 20th century with the telephone, automobile, and electricity, but actually 5. So, and those 5s are blockchain and this whole notion of Web 3.0, which is extremely popular right now in Silicon Valley, genome sequencing, and the crazy progress around biotech. Robotics, obviously, starting to become increasingly important, and we're starting to see real impact of robotics in manufacturing, for example, energy storage, and finally, artificial intelligence. So this is a key message. Like, it's not one or two technologies that are driving change. You actually have five major technologies or technology platform sort of completely transforming the world. So I think this is a really, really exciting time to be alive. And this is an amazing chance for all of you. When I started, when I was at university or when I started working, I did not have the opportunity you have today to be at a time when, things are blossoming in an absolutely crazy way. But this is where we are. And today our topic is artificial intelligence. And if you look at the five technologies that I just mentioned on the right of this slide, they are, the ones with underlined here. What you see basically is that artificial intelligence is specific in the sense that it is the central technology of our time. It's not one technology among many. It's sort of the glue between all those technological breakthroughs. Another way to look at it is say, artificial intelligence is like the solar system, and it's the sun in the solar systems, and all the planets or all the other technologies orbit around it. And you kind of see it in this sort of like bubble graph where it is central. It impacts, it has high intersection with biotechnology and genome sequencing. It has a significant intersection also with autonomous vehicles and self-driving and other fields. But the key thing is it's central, and it's a bit like electricity, if you take the analogy with the industrial revolution at the beginning of the 20th century. And you are basically at the right place at the right time, because what is interesting is that we already know that AI, and in particular like deep learning related technologies within AI, will actually become bigger than the internet. Think about it. The internet is a pretty big thing. It's definitely changed your life compared to previous generations. And I'm talking both from an economic but also social point of view. And AI is actually going to represent an even bigger revolution, both in sort of like in economic terms, an impact up to $30 trillion by 2037, but importantly also from a social and sort of like life aspect as well. So it really is interesting to be focused on AI at the moment, because this is the right time and things have started happening, but I actually believe we will see a lot more. So maybe like to make this a bit more concrete about like why is AI so important and why you're doing the right thing by focusing on it, I wanted to sort of give you a sense of the fact that AI is a triple exponential. Actually, it's not just one particular exponential driver. It's actually three, and those are data, compute power, and algorithms. And it's very easy, I think, for all of us to understand that data is growing exponentially. It's pretty obvious. Like, think about the number of pictures or videos you're taking on your smartphone or things that you're sharing online. The amount of data keeps growing year after year. Same thing with hardware, computers. Like we have the Moore's law, and actually in AI it's an even accelerated Moore's law, because a recent study from OpenAI showed that the power of deployed on machine learning jobs was actually doubling every 3.5 months, which is pretty remarkable. But the algorithms themselves, and that's particularly the most interesting part, according to me, is the fact that the algorithms themselves are actually also improving in quality, and they're improving faster than Moore's law. So Moore's law is this notion that compute power actually doubles every 2 years or so. Well, the efficiency of AI algorithms actually doubles every 16 months, which is less than 2 years. And the remarkable thing is that it's been going on since the beginning of the deep learning era of AI, so around 2012, 2013, with the ImageNet competitions. And what this really means is that, let's say for a visual AI task, if you want to do it in today, you would require, or last year, you would require 45 less time compute to get to the same level of, let's say, visual AI accuracy. than the compute you would need with the algorithms of 2013 or 2012. So this is amazing. Like, think about it. Data is growing exponentially, and you have compute power growing exponentially. But even if compute power stayed the same, you would still have an efficiency that is doubling every 16 months in terms of AI algorithms. But combine all of them together, and you have the recipe for something absolutely amazing. Another point to mention is, the efficiency of those AI algorithms comes from the fact that you have never had in history so many smart people working on AI. You literally have the smartest brains from the US, Europe, China, and now increasingly Africa, and in particular North Africa. And so as a consequence, you have an incredible amount of papers being published. Literally there is a Moore's law for machine learning papers as well. But the efficiency of the algorithms is very key. This is also important because it means that people with relatively little amount of compute could still get going if efficiency of algorithm improves. And to give you sort of an illustration of like this constant improvement in models and algorithms, well, transformers, which is a relatively recent innovation by Google, happened in 2017. And at the time, it got a few people's attention. But what is remarkable today is that transformers are everywhere. So transformers are basically a better way to represent dependencies in a sentence. So in the past we had LSTM style models, but those had a hard time relating like sort of like a long sequence items which were far from each other in a long sequence. And with transformers, you have a way to model dependency in a very sort of like straightforward but powerful way among the different items of a sentence. So if I look at here, the animal didn't cross the street because it was too tired. And I'm wondering, like, the it here, what does it refer to? Well, you see here that it refers mostly to the animal. Sort of like it puts the attention to the part of the sequence which is the animal. And so those type of models have become very powerful, and it's pretty incredible. Like, we used to say that software is eating the world. Now, as you've seen with this graph, like where AI is becoming bigger than the internet, deep learning is now eating software. And you could see deep learning as a sort of like a code written by data style approach, which is becoming increasingly powerful. Think about like self-driving cars, for example. Like, if you think about the software that powers self-driving cars, no human could write that software. It's actually software that is written in large part by accumulated data, which is transcribed into better self-driving algorithms. And now, what the interesting part about deep learning eating software, which is eating the world, is that transformer as a AI technology are becoming the mainstay, or are eating deep learning in a sense. And that is pretty remarkable. Like, you used to have, for example, like convolutional neural networks to do visual AI tasks. And today, while convnets are being displaced by transformer-based model or attention-based models. This is a recent work by Google AI that sort of highlights that. And so if you saw earlier on, we had dependencies between different items or different tokens in a sentence. Well, here the tokens could be different in like areas of an image, for example, and how they relate to each other. So that's to show you that now you have one technology which is actually being operational along multiple areas of AI, which is remarkable. You even have AI systems that can write code. There are pretty amazing demos of OpenAI's Codex, also based on transformers. So think about AI technologies such as transformer now allow you to sort of like program by writing in natural language. You say, okay, write me a code that does this, this, and that, and it will actually do it, which is pretty remarkable. But it doesn't stop there. If you look at biology, and at InstaDeep, we're quite involved in very exciting biotech projects. Well, you could see, the proteins that power your cells, that power like human beings or living beings, as basically sentences written in a particular language, which is amino acids, which then translate into different 3D configurations that give function to those proteins. And you could see it as basically, as I mentioned, a language, like the same way you had dependencies and attention between different tokens in a sentence. You have also dependencies between different amino acids in a protein, like you can see here, and those directly relate to the 3D shape of the protein. So why is this important? It's important because we've been able now to do things that were considered science fiction in the past. And in particular, I want to mention the amazing work done by Google DeepMind with AlphaFold 2 about protein folding, or predicting the 3D shape of a protein, which is very often associated to its function with its primary sequence, and simply like basically the sequence of amino acids. This is really amazing. For example, you see on these 3D representations, ribbon representation of proteins, basically the experimental result in this color, and here the computational prediction, and they fit fairly well. You know, we're talking about like atomic level amount of accuracy. Why is this important? And you can see here the progress through time at different protein folding competitions. Like this is the CASP competition, but like across different years. And what's amazing is that the latest iteration of AlphaFold, AlphaFold 2, is so good that effectively it enables like not needing necessarily like in vitro or lab experiments to determine 3D shape. You could have a first good prior about the shape of a protein without doing a very expensive computer lab. Said differently, like you could be in Algiers and just with an internet connection and a laptop doing very advanced biology research, maybe on areas saving lives, without having a wet lab at your disposal or any complex or costly machinery. This is really like groundbreaking, and this is where AI is, and this is why, you know, to summarize what we were discussing, AI is such a, you know, an acceleration. Like the combination of availability of data, and if I think about biotechnology, for example, the cost of genome sequencing is constantly going down. It used to be in the order of like, $10,000 or even more. Today it's less than $1,000, and there will be a future where it will probably be in the order of $100. And so this progress on the data side, availability of data, progress on compute power, but importantly, progress on the algorithms themselves. AlphaFold 2 is algorithmic progress built on transformers. You combine all this and you have very profound disruptions that make the world a better place. So that's the story of AI, and I hope you saw through these examples why we're talking about, the internet becoming like the AI becoming bigger than the internet, even in terms of like economic terms. Well, those are very profound, changes. And in this particular case, it is accelerating the path to developing new drugs and vaccines. It's accelerating the path to have self-driving cars and the like. So these are really high impact revolutions, and definitely making the world a better place. So that's basically like what's going on in AI. And the key question is, you might ask yourself is, okay, this is all very nice, but like, how could an AI startup get going? And in particular, like, how could an AI startup which actually was founded in North Africa, in Tunisia or in Algiers, get going? And what are lessons that are interesting, whether you want to do a startup or you want to do an AI project? And here I will share with you like some like very personal lessons I've learned through the journey I had with my co-founder Zora. So it's a set of basically principles of lessons. The first lesson is you have to burn your bridges. In today's world it's very easy to get distracted. So what do I mean by burning your bridges? It means basically, if you're going to start an AI project, or for that point of view any tech project, you have to be fully committed to it. Commit to it publicly. Make it impossible to change your mind. In a sense, like it's like battles in the past, like commanders would land the troops and then they would burn the ships to say there is no turning back, you can only win. That's exactly the mentality. And for me, that meant coming back to Tunisia. I used to work in the US and in London, and I came back to Tunisia and I was like, okay, I've dropped my previous job, there is no other option, I have to go for it. And that's when the whole concept of what became InstaDeep became possible, because once you are committed to something, And if you have a way to acquire competence and you're passionate about it, great things will happen. If you are not committed, I guarantee you nothing will happen in any case. And then the question is, how could you build your competitive edge? Okay, now you're committed, but so what? And my point here is that if you're at GDG Algiers, you're likely to have an already quite good understanding of what's going on in machine learning, what's going on in tech in general, and so you probably also have a sense of what's happening in Algeria, in Africa, maybe in the world when in AI, and a sense of what could be missing. So you have a perspective, and with this perspective, you can find something that you're competent and passionate about, and this is key because like to really become competitive at something, you need to have the passion. In a sense, it is defining a task or a project in a way such that you are the best in the world at doing that. So it might sound like a tough hurdle to say, I need to be the best in the world at doing something. But in reality, what it means is that you need to zoom in on where you are strong. And each one of you has his own or her own unique strengths. And this is where you need to deep dive. For example, like if I talk about myself, my background is applied mathematics. I studied in Tunisia and then École Polytechnique in France and then in the US. But my unique sort of competence was the intersection of applied mathematics and also a good understanding of North Africa versus the rest of the world and how these two could be combined and create a team out of these like two different cultures and sets of mentalities, capabilities, and the like, on top of the fact that I'm passionate about applied mathematics. So you see, in a way, I ended up doing something on which I was arguably very competent in many ways. And this is very important if you want to have success in any of your projects. And then now that you have sort of like zoomed in on what you think is interesting in terms of like general sector, people tend to make the mistake that being successful at a project is about ideas. It is not about ideas. It is about people. If you have bad idea but a great team, well, you have very good chances of succeeding. Why? Because you will change your idea along the way, but you cannot change the people. So if you have a great idea but a bad team, well, the team is bad, so you're gonna get nowhere, and your chance of success is zero. I have literally seen, teams at InstaDeep be 30 times more productive than average because they were passionate, they were competent, they loved working as teams. So, and this is typical of like, great engineers or others. They're not driven by money first. They're driven by, the project, the mission. And if you have that mentality, you will be successful. And for me, like this is when I met my co-founder, Zahra Slim. That's when everything became possible because we were very additive to each other. She's a woman in tech, like focused on software. I'm all about like science, applied mathematics, AI, etc. And so together we were definitely a good team, and we had many bad ideas, but that was fine because ultimately we managed to find ideas that work and iterate. And how did we manage to do this? Was through this notion of trying multiple things. It's actually even like a concept in AI or in reinforcement learning, which is this exploration versus exploitation dilemma. If you think you have a good idea and you just want to exploit that idea, maybe you're missing on better ideas, and then you're exploring more. So in a sense, you need to find a compromise between exploring a lot or zooming in on something you think is good. And the reality is, you have to be very optimistic in when you're doing a project or when you're doing an AI startup. Many things will not work, but by being optimistic, you keep trying. You keep trying every time something new, and you explore more, and ultimately you will find some things which are interesting and worth of your time. And so once you have all this, you're iterating, etc. The notion of how you build an AI team is an interesting one. Is like it's a chicken and egg problem. If you want to be a great AI startup, you need a great AI team. But the great AI team will only come when you are a great startup already. So what do you do? And this was a real problem for us, for example. And how did we break this problem? Well, we broke this problem by building ourselves, the founders, into great AI experts. As I said, I had some background, so I plunged back completely into it and became even a Google machine learning developer expert, an ML GDE. But you could do the same. Like you could learn, online. There are many good sources. But the notion is build yourself into an expert if you cannot hire other experts. And once you're an expert, well, you know who to hire, you know who to partner with, and the like. So I was an expert in AI, and Zora is an expert in software. So together we were able to keep the technical control of projects, and importantly, hire wisely. And this led us to winning competitions on Kaggle and other areas, and even like publish innovative research, which in this particular case of the rank reward paper even got the attention of Google DeepMind. So be passionate about things, and if you want to build a great AI team, well, be yourself the great person that others would love to work with and work together or work for, and that's the beginning of like great adventures. It's in a sense, it's a lot about the mentality. Like you have to see collaboration as essential, because it is like there is no modern AI project which was like sort of like it was created by one or two people. It doesn't exist anymore. You have to really have a whole team to be able to do these things. You need to keep learning and have a focus on performance. Like performance is important, obviously, and just learn how the best do it, but don't sacrifice the collaboration spirit while we're doing this. And importantly, build a diverse team. Like this is important. Like people around you should be diverse. I mean, I'm very proud of the fact that at InstaDeep we have team members from many places in the world, from China, from South Africa, from the UK, from Canada. It's really exciting to have diversity of background, but with the same focus and alignment on the fact that we're focused on building great AI stuff, and have that mentality that everything is possible, that it's an abundance mindset. Treat your teammates in a good way, have fun, be always open sourcing, be always in a mentality of giving back and being creative. I just want to give you a sense of what this means for us. Like this is an example of collaboration which we open sourced between InstaDeep and iCompass, which is a Tunisian startup focused on dialects. And the idea behind Tunbert was like nobody built an AI transformer model for Tunisian dialect. So we said, let's do it. And importantly, we open sourced everything. So you can go online and find the GitHub repo for Tunbert, and you'll find everything out there. So that's the mentality. This is also what took us to design and actually execute AI Hack Tunisia 2019, which was basically invented by me and a few people at InstaDeep. But then we got collaboration of the government, collaboration from Google. That was an amazing event. And guess who won? It's actually people from GDG Algiers, Azedine, Zakaria, and other, who won the team competition. And we were very proud that there were so many nationalities present. I think there were a total of around between 15 and 20 nationalities, and really like amazing display of talent and competence from the team from GDG Algiers. So I wanted to mention this because really like I was so impressed by the talent and qualities you guys have. But the most important quality was persistence, willpower, an ability to get things done at any cost. And this is so important. And so AI Hack Tunisia, that was really an amazing event. So 14 countries were presented. Actually, I think it was one or two more. Speakers from everywhere. And again, winning team from GDG Algiers. But this is kind of my message, telling you that at GDG Algiers, in Algeria, you have amazing talent. You have amazing capabilities. And why? It's because you are highly motivated. Things are not easy every day, but as a consequence, there is a sort of, I don't know how to say, like grinta. There is a willingness to do things, to achieve things, which I found really remarkable. And I think in life, you could not have a bigger gift. Like I started InstaDeep with 2 laptops and $2,000, literally from pretty much nothing. And I just have had the passion. Zora, my co-founder, had the passion. We worked very hard, many sleepless nights, and ultimately we got to results. I believe you have what it takes. And for me, it was really like an amazing experience to meet the team from GDG and see them win. So Other lessons about how to do things, how to find data. I mean, those are classical ideas, but in a sense, we live in a very open world. So don't think, oh, I cannot do a project because I cannot find data. Well, there are so many data sets available online that you could find the data, or you could even, in certain cases, create the data, for example, like 3D objects, etc. There are so many ways to get going today that you cannot find excuses not to do things. It's actually possible to do amazing things. And by doing, you will find what works, what doesn't, and ultimately get into positive loops. I mentioned here like a few positive loops which I think are important for impactful AI. Well, one loop which is, you have a good product, you attract users here on the left, users generate more data, you use it to improve the product and go from good to great product, and so on and so forth, and you spin this wheel faster and faster. That's a successful startup. Another successful startup is you're getting great projects with customer, like more like a B2B sort of environment. This gives you more experience and visibility, new opportunities. Also, talent gets excited to work with you. You have a better team. You have better R&D. Translates into more visibility, and the two wheels keep turning together. This is more like what we do at InstaDeep. So it's actually possible to get going, and it doesn't require so much time to get going. Like if you look at tools that are available on Google Cloud, and many of those could be made available for you free of charge by Google. I know Google has an amazing support network for startups. You also have Google for Startups Accelerator, at which I am a mentor, which I highly encourage you to apply for if you have a startup, or if you have a project. So you could literally build models even in one day, even if you're not yet an expert of machine learning and etc. It's all about willingness to do stuff. And as I mentioned, there are many like ecosystem partners that can help you along this way, from Google for Startups Accelerator, Y Combinator. In Tunisia, multiple agencies are there. So today you can actually find the funding to push your projects. It's not impossible like it used to be, and you have to look at it from an international style perspective, but it's definitely possible. And finally, maybe like to sort of summarize, so those lessons learned on how to do interesting things in impactful AI. Well, momentum is gold. Like, meaning that if you are in a startup project, well, you're going to have pressure from everybody, the clients, the investors, the employees, the deadlines from product, etc. But if you get to a certain speed of execution, well, things become magical. You can sort out any problem, literally any problem. So I like this word from General Patton from World War II, which says, a good plan violently executed now is better than a perfect plan executed next week. This is so true in startup world, and you have to really think that way. And you have to join teams that think that way. Like, the future could happen much faster than people think. You can be part of this future, and all what you have to do is get into this kind of mentality. I wanted to give you some idea about, like, for example, what we did with InstaDeep. As was mentioned by Mesa, we got nominated twice in the top 100 most promising startups in the world. It's very rare actually that you get nominated twice. We're also an elite partner to NVIDIA out of only 6 in the world. Well, if you had told me this when I started with Zora in Tunis, with literally our 2 laptops and very little money, I would have said it's absolutely impossible. But here we are, and it's possible, and it's happening. And so I want you to see your career, no matter what you want to do, joining a great team or building your own team. It's definitely something possible. The limit is yourself today. Another example, InstaDeep is now collaborating with BioNTech, and we announced a strategic collaboration agreement with BioNTech exactly a year ago. This was really an insane moment for us. I mean, think about it. The same month where Professor Ugur Sahin, the inventor of the COVID vaccine, announced to the world that the Pfizer BioNTech vaccine actually works and has great efficiency. That was in November 2020. The same month, we actually released a joint press press communique with BioNTech, mentioning that we would be working together to develop basically innovation at the intersection of AI and biotechnology. Again, this is something that I would have never thought possible, yet through sheer hard work, not taking no for an answer, fighting, innovating, thinking completely outside the box, it became possible. And if it was possible for us, it's definitely possible for you to do outstanding things. This led us to publish joint research papers with BioNTech, including this one about prospective COVID-19 therapeutic, which was we presented at NeurIPS, the most influential AI conference last year. And this year, a bit in the same spirit, we are doing a joint AI research paper with Google, and which will be presented at two actually workshops at NeurIPS 2021, the AI and humanitarian assistance and disaster recovery workshop, as well as ML for the developing world. So these are things are possible, and you can be part of the future. So at InstaDeep, we are hiring, and we're definitely very interested in building great things with Algerian talents. Actually, Azedine and Zakaria from GDG Algiers now work at InstaDeep, and it's pretty remarkable what they've been able to achieve since a year. They work with us, and we're really keen on building collaborations and, in general, like supporting the ecosystem in Algeria, because I do believe that and this is true for Algeria the same way is true for Tunisia or North Africa in general. Tech is the solution to build and develop our countries. Like, there's going to be no other magic silver bullet. Tech is the one, and in particular AI, because we have the talent and capability to get going there. So this is, in a sense, what I wanted to tell you. The future is happening. AI is central to this disruption, so you're definitely doing the right thing to listen to this presentation and focus on AI. AI is going to be bigger than the internet. That's pretty remarkable. I don't think everybody understands this, but this is definitely happening, and everybody can be part of it. The same way at InstaDeep, we believe things were possible, and now we're the only Arab and African startup in the top 100 most promising startups in the world. But the same way, you can be part of amazing AI projects. Just be curious, either apply to the company you love or build your own project. But we live in a time of possibilities which are absolutely extraordinary. And don't think that because it hasn't happened before, it cannot happen today. We live in a time of profound change and opportunity, and you should be very optimistic about it. And I think that there was no generation that had so much opportunity as this one. So this is my sort of like positive message. I believe there is so much to be done, and I'll stop here, and maybe we can take some questions from the audience.
Wow, I would just like to take a moment and say, like, it's so inspirational and empowerment, all of what you said. This presentation was like really amazing, and it's really exciting to see how small something when you can start like really small, like you said, two laptops and $2,000 and build something huge, this huge, and also being worldly recognized for it. So that's really impressive. And I can see the comments of the audience were like they're super excited about what you said. They like really like the mindset and the motivation you gave us through this talk. So I don't think there's any question. Wait, I'll just like check if there are questions. Okay, yeah. So one says, what problems or difficulties that you once encountered or are still encountering because of being a Tunisian-based or Africa-based AI startup?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would say the difficulties, I think we all know them. Like, we live in countries where, administration is very slow. There may be a lack of awareness about the potential of tech. If you are here listening to this presentation or being part of GDG Algiers in any way, you understand the potential of technology. And so from there, you're already like beyond sort of like the limitations that most people have, because they don't see the opportunity like you see it. But more profoundly, this limitation about the fact that our countries are not yet into their digital transformation, and this is classic. It's not just about Tunisia and Algeria. It's true in many places in the world. Well, how can you overcome it? Well, very simple. Get a laptop and get an internet connection. The world is big. There is plenty of opportunity. I think one of the good decisions we did very early on at InstaDeep was we said our market is the world. We were not hunting for projects or business just in Tunisia. We were really having like sort of like a global perspective from day one. So that's very important. And so think about international standards. Like whatever you do, it has to be competitive internationally. If it's just competitive in your neighborhood, that's not going to work. You have to really aim higher than that. And so that's the challenge and the difficulties. Now the opportunity, I told you, the biggest opportunity is all of us, we understand the value of the world having changed, the fact that there are so many people in the world willing to back early stage projects. When we started in study, it was very difficult to get funding, for example. I believe today it's a lot easier. You go and learn from the very best. Follow, for example, like startup classes or like project management classes from Y Combinator, the best accelerator in the world. Don't follow local content. Go for the best content in the world and have that mentality that everything is possible. Because life in Tunisia or Algeria or in Africa in general is so challenging. You have a mentality of fighter. You have that grinta, and that is, I think, the biggest asset. It's like I always say it like this is how you turn like difficulties into an advantage. Like we refuse to surrender. We keep fighting, and if you have that mentality, you will win in the end, and that's really a part of it. So if you have that sense, you can get very far. Yeah.
That's such an important message, yeah. And the idea of focusing on a global market definitely helps with the challenge of not having very digital infrastructures in our countries. So, yeah. We
And,
have another question.
yeah, I just wanted to mention also, like given the fact, and this is even true post COVID, or due to the COVID pandemic, COVID is a big challenge. Okay, all of us have people and family members that suffered, etc. But in every challenge, there is an opportunity, and I'll tell you what is the opportunity. The opportunity is, in the past, it was very difficult for a super talented Algerian, and just sitting in Algiers or in any other city in Algeria, to get hired by international company. Today, it's a lot less true. The notion of remote work has become so pervasive that I think we moved from 20% of all jobs offered as potentially remote to something like 70, 80%. This means that really, like, the opportunities you're facing today are the best there have ever been. So that's, so it doesn't have an issue to be like Tunisia based or Algeria based, provided you are competitive internationally. It's all about raising the quality bar. That is the most important thing.
Yeah, definitely. So let's see if you have more questions. Uh, yeah, mostly they are mostly comments like they're really excited about all what you said and the empowerment you gave. I
Yeah,
really
it's
like to highlight
I,
how you
yeah I think
encourage the
yeah.
Algerians. Yeah,
Yeah, my point of view on this is, I think things are changing, and many of you, you're at a point where you're gonna make a choice of career. You're interested in tech. You probably have already great English. You have programming skills. You're following the world. My biggest advice is, don't go to work for a classic company, and you know what I mean, like people who are with a mindset of the past, and we know all examples of this kind of companies. Go to work for people who are building the future, people that you get along with, that you feel share the same values. That is very important.
yeah. And also the impact. Now I think most of us like younger people like always think about the impact. It's changing. Before we used to think like what's the job that will give me the most comfort money wise, but I think the culture of being or having an impact in this world is spreading. It's spreading greatly. So that's really inspiration. It's really inspirational to see that we can achieve something with goals that aren't classic. So yeah,
Absolutely, yeah. In many ways, like I'll share an example. I mentioned this notion of helping others, being open source. doing things that are not directly translatable into a bottom line kind of thinking.
Yeah,
At InstaDeep, we always had that sort of good karma vibe. It's just true, not just for me, but for Zora and so many in our team. But so we went and did things which were really not necessary, like AI Hack Tunisia. That was a crazy event. Like we literally rented the whole stadium, and we did like it was actually the biggest event in Europe, Middle East, and Africa, the biggest hackathon with 1,000 people. And as I mentioned, it's a team from GDG Algiers that won, which was insane. But at InstaDeep, we decided to do this because we felt it was important. And in a crazy way, well, we got the chance to meet amazing people. Some of them work at InstaDeep, including from the winning team. We built amazing bridges with so many people. People from the whole world came. And so that's the spirit of giving back. That's the spirit of doing the right thing, even if it's hard. And the lesson I have for you is don't see, building a successful business or giving back to the community as two different things. They're a part of who you are, and don't hesitate to be really like true to your values and beliefs. When I started this project, I always wanted to do it like the right way. I wasn't sure how far it would get, but it turned out to be definitely the right way. And so we're going to do AI Hack in Tunisia again in 2022, and you're all invited. So please be in touch, and we'll find a way to fly you and get you to Tunisia. It could be fun.
thank you, thank you. That's really like the success story, the inspiration, it's all there. And I'm sure all the audience are like thinking of the next step to do to work or to be a part of an impactful business. So it's really nice. Thank you so much for this presentation, and thank you so much for empowering us and for mentioning about our GDG Algiers and AI Tunisia, and for inviting us for the futures event. So I don't think we have much time left before our next talk. Again, I want to thank you for this amazing talk, and hopefully we'll have you again soon.
Absolutely a pleasure, and remember, the best is still to come. So hopefully we'll do plenty of great things together. And thanks again, and take care. Yeah, see you soon.
Thank you. See you. So we are not done yet. We'll take a short break now and start with our another talk about DevOps at Netflix. So stay tuned.
Big family.
Community.
paylaşmak,
Home sweet home.
طغيان.
innovation,
Opportunity.
Technology.
sharing,
Motivation.
Proficiency.
Progress.
Passion.
Excitement,
Life experience.
Achievement.
inspiration,
School.
خشونة.
Improvement.
leadership,
Friendship.
Fun.
Motivation.
connection,
Innovation. Love.
Creativity.
Family.
Teamwork.
sharing.
Things that matter. And yes, we are cool.
Hello everyone and welcome again with our fourth talk of the day at DevFest Algiers 2021. We are having a series of interesting topics and now we have another one which is DevOps at Netflix with a software engineer who's working at Netflix of course, Mr. Tijas Chopra. I'll see if he can join me in the stage. Oh, hello. Hello.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being here and welcome.
Yes, thank you.
So without further ado, I'll just remind the audience that if they have any questions, they can drop them in the comments. And I guess I'll let you go with it. Yeah.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Tejas Chopra, and I am a senior software engineer at Netflix. And today I'll talk about Netflix and how we look at DevOps. The agenda for my talk is as follows. I'll just briefly discuss about what I do at Netflix. We'll talk about Netflix, what the company does, how it views DevOps, and finally some pieces of culture there. I'm a senior software engineer here. My job is to architect infrastructure solutions to support Netflix studios and streaming platforms. I specifically work on building a distributed storage for Netflix artists that can create movies in a globally distributed manner. Before Netflix, I was at Box, where I was again architecting infrastructure for millions of customers and petabytes of data. I have worked in companies such as Samsung and Apple in the past. When we think about Netflix, right, as a company, our goal is to win moments of truth. That means that every day when you are watching Netflix, and so many of us watch Netflix every day, right? We want to, at any point in time, give the best experience to our users and win their trust. And at that moment, they have a choice to pick linear television, Netflix, and other options. But we want to be at a place where they pick us. And that's why all of our energy as a company is spent on content, conversation, and choosing. So if we step back and look at the internals of Netflix and how it works, then the architecture is somewhat like this. So we have compute and storage that today completely runs almost entirely off AWS. We started off using a third-party content distribution network, such as Akamai, but then we realized quickly that we would be best served by having our own CDN. So we wrote code for it and we open sourced it. And now it is in Netflix Open Connect. So all of our streaming today happens using Netflix Open Connect. All of the services that are needed for streaming and the metadata and the control plane is in AWS. And we use Akamai for some small assets and for UI today. Now, because we are designing for winning moments of truth, we have to be mindful of writing software appropriately. And when Netflix started off, it was it was in the DVD business, and then it moved to streaming. And in streaming, we've seen that our scale has just grown exponentially. Just to give you some numbers for the scale today, Netflix works for more than 200 million members. We work in 190 countries, and we have thousands of microservices, thousands of daily production changes that happen on these microservices, tens of thousands of virtual machine instances, millions of containers actually, hundred thousands of customer interactions per second with Netflix, millions and billions of time series metrics that we collect every quarter, tens of billions of hours that are streamed every quarter to the users. But we do this with tens of operations engineers. And we absolutely have no NOC. NOC is Network Operations Center, which is very typical in almost all the enterprise companies that I've worked with. But it was amazing for me to see that Netflix does not have any NOC. Now, if I have to put all of these microservices and their interactions, this is how it would look like. It is safe to say that there is no single person in Netflix today that knows how it works. So that's the scale at which we operate Netflix. So how do we imagine DevOps or the process of having operational readiness, rollout, and even observability at Netflix? The simple answer is we don't. We don't do DevOps in the traditional way. We don't have systems that say no to our engineers and our developers. There are no push windows. Everyone has full access to production today. We don't take time to build systems or have procedures or policies that prevent people from pushing their code. What instead we do is we believe in freedom and responsibility. One of our goals at Netflix is to hire smart people and get out of their way. So if I hire someone who is good at what they do and is intelligent, then they need to have the freedom to solve problems in the way that they see best. We also look for people that take responsibility and do not wait to be given. What we don't focus on is uptime at all costs. There are some companies and organizations for which uptime at all costs is very critical. These are companies in healthcare, in finance, etc. And the repercussions of downtime are very different in these industries. But what we do focus on is the velocity of innovation. Netflix is a creative company. We want the smart engineers that we hire to find best ways to delight our customers. Netflix as an organization knows that we will have to trade some of the uptime for this. It is not that uptime is not important. It is just that it is not our first priority. Our first priority is keeping our engineers doing fun and interesting and exciting things for our customers and scaling them. What we don't focus on is processes and procedures. It is difficult to have a fast moving organization filled with people solving interesting problems to have someone that builds guardrails that are appropriate. That is a very bureaucratic way of thinking about it. One of the functions of bureaucracies is to take that bureaucratic machine and plug it virtually in any cog and get the output that the bureaucracy desires. That is not what we are doing at Netflix. What instead we focus on is trust. We want to work hard to find people that are not from the bureaucratic machine mold. We want them to question how we do things. We want them to challenge us and suggest us newer ways of doing things. So we trust the people that we hire. That is why we don't have issues giving everyone access to production. Someone may say that, someone can shut the production down. Well, it has never happened at Netflix. So we believe in having an open communication and trust built at every layer in our organization. What we don't focus on is having people adhere to a particular language or a framework or an IDE. We have a lot of JVM languages. We have a lot of microservices that are written in Spring Boot, Kotlin, Python. I work on a file system that is written in C++, and some amount of Go. There's lots of Rust and Scala and Node as well at Netflix. But what we do focus on is enablement. Some years ago, a team that worked on the UI wrote the backend in Java and the front end in JavaScript. And they realized that they would be better served using Node. So they actually switched and they did not need any approvals for it. In my team, for example, we write file system. We analyze the performance of a Fuse file system that is written in C++ versus a Fuse file system written in Java. And we realized that for writing a file system, C++ gave us the best performance. So we took a conscious decision of sticking with it. We have a team that writes tools to enable other software engineers to spend time on things that we've hired them to do. As a company, we do not, like I said, we do not have traditional operational fences where the op engineering group sits behind the fence over which the developers throw their code in the hopes that it'll show up in production. We do not have any silos or walls or fences of that sort. What we do have is the ability to make ownership easy, and we follow the philosophy of you build it, you run it, with a focus on enablement. If I write code, it is my responsibility to deploy it to production, manage the cluster groups, the ASGs, select the right machine that is appropriate for running that, and monitoring it is also my responsibility. We do not have a separate team that looks at graphs and metrics. Every individual is responsible for their service and the graphs and the metrics for their service. I have been using Spinnaker for doing this. Spinnaker is one of the tools that we have open sourced from Netflix. It actually makes it easy for developers to push their applications to cloud and to monitor them. And it works across cloud, and it also works for on-premise systems as well. We do not really rely on a lot of guesses or gut instinct or tradition, but we do rely on data. Netflix, at its very core, is an enormous data company. We have 2.5 billion time series metrics collected every quarter, and these are just the operational data. A vast majority of our decision making is based on data. So Netflix began streaming in the year 2007 from our data centers. In 2008, there was a catastrophic fire in a data center. So we had a decision to make. We could have done data centers and found people to do it. But our job is to win those moments of truth. So we worked with partners to do the undifferentiated heavy lifting. Being great at running data centers will not help us win moments of truth. We much rather have our partners do it than us do it. So we moved to cloud, and in 2015, our transition to cloud was complete. That is how we use data to inform our decisions. We look at what people watch and enjoy, and so we are able to produce the content and the kind of stories that they like. If you think about the amount of time series metrics that we have, we would need tens of thousands of television sets to just look at those metrics every single minute. And there is no single human being that can look at that amount of data. So there is no point having a NOC or a network operation center that can look at these metrics. Instead, what we focus on is having algorithms and data-driven decision making that can drive either redundant workflows in case something fails, or it can inform the owners of the service about failures. We invest in data and algorithms. So in the traditional sense, we don't really do DevOps. But what we do is we focus on culture. The first thing that we ask people that are wanting to work at Netflix is to go over our culture document, because that gives a very good idea about how Netflix as an organization works. We value freedom and responsibility. We value context over control. So we take efforts to provide context, but not have the layers of control that are there in traditional organizations. We believe in constant feedback. So feedback at Netflix is not a one-off event that happens every 6 months or every year. In fact, it is a daily thing that we've imbibed in ourselves, where we seek feedback, we give feedback openly, and we discuss and debate about different options. We value our culture very highly. We want to see that how we think about things is the same way how you think about things. The result of the Netflix culture looks a lot like DevOps. So I would say that DevOps is really a result of a healthy culture and a healthy thinking. If you think that some of the things that I've talked about right now do not work for your organization, or if none of them work, then you do not really have a DevOps problem. You really have a culture problem at that point. And there are industries, for example, healthcare and finance, where you may need some guardrails, but you still can have freedom and responsibility to choose which guardrails to apply. So I hope I was able to give a brief introduction about how Netflix thinks about DevOps, about culture, and I was able to communicate that to you. That's my talk. Please feel free to reach out to me on my email address or LinkedIn or Twitter. And Netflix is hiring at this point. So if you think that all of these things align with the way you think, then please reach out to me. Also, if you think that you can take away any best practices for your industries and your organizations, please feel free to do that, and please share your feedback with me as well. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. That was such an interesting talk. We don't have many possibilities to see about to learn about the Netflix culture. So that was really interesting.
Thank you.
I think we have one question.
Yep.
In your opinion, so Zakaria is asking, in your opinion, what's the biggest traits of Netflix that made it so big?
I think the biggest trait is relying on data. I think that we collect a lot of data every day, every single day. When you go on a Netflix app and you scroll through the different movies, every single thing that you're doing influences what we show to you. It influences the choice of your movies, and within a movie as well, the scene that you see or the image that you see in the movie is actually influenced from your personal choice. So if you like an actor, and if that actor shows up in a movie with some other actors, we would show that image that is just curated for you so that you can see your actor. Now imagine the amount of machine learning and algorithms that go behind it. But at the very bedrock of it is technology that we've invested in. And we have taken bets such as having our own CDN, our own content distribution network, relying on streaming, not serving it from data centers. And like, for example, going cloud and not having local storage or local data centers as well. So I think those are some of the decisions that have helped Netflix become big, and also trying to learn from customers and trying to delight our customers has helped us get so many customers as well.
I see. That's really interesting. So you mean even the thumbnails they show it are something it's kind wow. Yeah, that's really interesting. That's
Yes,
really
yes.
interesting.
The thumbnails are very curated for you. So if I'm looking at something and my friend is looking at the same thing, the thumbnails will be very different. The uh, the thing that they show, like I'm forgetting the name. But yeah, whatever they show on the screen, the order in which they show, it's very different for different users.
Wow, it must be a really big technology behind it because it really pushes you to keep the users in the interface and engaged with it. And the binge watching comes from Netflix, I think. We didn't have
Yes,
that back in the days where streaming services were just the TV, and yeah, that's
exactly. Yes, and if you think about it, right, like when you look at television, you have an episode, a series, right? You watch an episode, then you have to then come back either the other day or the other week to look at the next
exactly.
episode,
Yeah.
right? But Netflix then started, we'll release all the episodes at once. So that was Netflix was the first company to release that idea of having all the episodes streamed once, so that you can continue to watch all the episodes and continue to be invested in the series itself. So I think that again, that's why the term binge watching comes from Netflix.
That's true. Yeah, I do remember like the thinking it was a clever thing to put all the episodes at once and not keep the users waiting week by week or month by month, depending on how the rate of the episodes were going out. So yeah, that's really impressive. So
Yes,
there's a
yes,
lot of techniques that makes the user engaged in Netflix.
absolutely. Yes, and now we have also started going into the gaming initiative. So we have released Netflix games. So now that you can see a Netflix show, you'll have similar characters show up in a game as well. So that is again our strategy of content, conversation, and choosing. We want to show good content. We want to strike a conversation about the content, and we want to be good for winning those moments of truth. So we want people to choose us and choose the right content that we are showing for them. So that's how our focus has been.
Yeah, I remember. I think it was a Black Mirror episode was the first
Yes.
interactive. Yeah, that was
Bandersnatch.
pretty
Yes.
exciting. That was such a good idea. I mean, having to kind of decide the ending and the events of the
Yes.
movies. Yeah, kind of like a
Yes.
game. Exactly.
Exactly. Exactly. And yeah, that's, it should not be a one-way street where you stream content to your users and just seek feedback on other channels. We want to engage with our users. And this is such a great way to engage with our users and learn about what different people think and how different people are culturally aligned as well. So I think we've been taking a lot of efforts to do that as a company. and we will continue to do that as well.
That's really interesting. And yeah, about the interaction, it does keep the user engaged and focused all the time, because sometimes you might doze off to a movie, but when you're playing the movie, it's
Yeah,
really different.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's really interesting. Let's see if we
Yeah.
have other questions. I think we don't, but I'll have a question. Do developers have like perks in when working with Netflix, like avant-premiere kind of movie releases?
I say that we have perks, like some of the Netflix releases we can see 2 weeks in advance
Yeah,
than the world, but we still pay for Netflix. So we don't get Netflix for free. The
yeah,
other perks are, I mean, for me personally, right? The perk is that I can get to use any software, any laptop, and expense it, and there'll be no questions asked.
yeah.
The other perk is that I can attend any conference, no questions asked. I can take any course online, no questions asked. I love the freedom that comes with working at Netflix, because I am free to, uh, even right now in the work from home, I can buy any furniture for working and I can expense it. So I think as a company, it focuses on letting every developer feel that it is their own company. So you
Yeah.
use money wisely. And the perks of writing, of being free to choose any software or work on anything at Netflix within your realm is something that is very crucial for someone like me. So
That's yeah, that's really nice to know. So they give you the comfort you need to work in the best conditions. That's so
yes.
important. What's the most, let's say, different about Netflix culture that we don't find in other companies, for example?
Uh, I mean, for me, the biggest thing is that I can actually write an email to the CEO of Netflix and I can expect a response from him right away.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
And that there are many layers in organizations. Netflix has a flat or hierarchy, so everyone is a senior software engineer at Netflix. You don't have a engineer, senior software engineer, principal engineer. People that have 8 years of experience to people that have 28 years of experience, they have the same title. So there is no title, there's no fight for like titles at Netflix. That is something that is very different in Netflix than other organizations that I've seen. So yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely uncommon to have this flat hierarchy between the CEO and the software
Yes.
engineers, and yeah.
Yes.
So
Yes.
so it does feel like it's your company because everyone it's at the same level.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think it really helps because you are responsible for your own growth as an engineer. There is no title that you want to grow to. You just grow by helping teams, helping other engineers, increasing your scope of influence,
Mhm.
and increasing your responsibilities. That's how growth is imagined at Netflix as well. So
You're driven by the impact you will make on the software. Yeah.
exactly.
That was really fruitful. Yeah. That's such an interesting view on Netflix and their culture. We don't hear much about it, so that was a really good opportunity for us to learn about it.
Yes.
Thank you
Yes.
so much. Thank you so much for this presentation and for sharing all of these really interesting insights about Netflix.
Sure, sure. My pleasure. And for folks that are asking on this channel, we actually have started accepting some fresh graduates and interns. So please feel free to reach out on the careers page, and you can just ping me on LinkedIn, and I can then connect you with the right people in Netflix. At this point in time, we are hiring people only in the US. So if you are in the US, anywhere, please feel free to reach out to me.
Yeah, thank you. That's great.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, sure.
So, for our audience, we still have one more talk that will be in approximately 30 minutes. So, we'll take a short break now. Stay tuned.